Okay, so this is the launch of the Springfield Common Ground live call-in talk show and podcast. Thank you for everybody that has been able to call in. We're hoping more people could call in. If any of you guys are on Facebook or Twitter or any of the social media platforms and, can just kind of let everybody know that we're on live, hopefully we'll get, even more participation. But we're so thankful everybody's here, and we're going to get going in just a few seconds here. So we just to make it official, because this is going to be, online soon for everybody to hear as a recorded podcast. Just want to start off with a little bit of music to set the tone. I'm not going to play the whole song, but I think it's appropriate. John Legend featuring Common, Glory.
One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours, it will be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure, we will be sure. Oh, glory, glory, glory. Oh.
Here we go. Welcome to the Springfield Common Ground, Black Lives, White Allies. So we're going to have another quick musical interlude. This is my attempt to be a rapper, so to speak, but it's just kind of like the intro to our show. We got a little bit of a echo. Can you go over here? Yeah, I have several people in my house that are actually calling in that are going to be listening as well. So here we go. We're going to kick the show off with Springfield Common Ground. Here we go. Black Lives, White Allies. Yeah.
Springfield, Common Ground zine, live and direct on your PC screen. New magazine, fresh and so clean, about to hit the streets, about to make a scene. No matter what you think or what you believe, reporters' instinct will let you proceed. Publish the story that you retrieve. No fake news or make-believe. What is a zine? What does it mean? Collaboration team reporting on the scene. News just happens every day and night. Talking heads yapping, never get it right. Alternative facts, dog whistle blowing, fear-based attacks, never really showing real impact on your neighborhood. Take a step back and see what's good. Say you got news that you wanna show. Call the podcast and let me know. Get on Facebook, hit live and go. Stream the event and let it flow. Then I'll write and keep it tight. Fact check choices and do it right. Let's get back to community. What impact for you and me? Back on track, society. Springfield, diversity. LGBTUC. Transgender will never surrender. Black and white, native and Asian. Latino, immigrant, Caucasian. Street reporters, let's all unite. Keep eyes open every day and night. Springfield, Common Ground zine, live and direct on your PC screen. New magazine, so fresh and so clean. About to hit the streets, about to make a scene. Springfield, Common Ground zine, live and direct on your PC screen. New magazine, so fresh and so clean. About to hit the streets.
All right, so welcome everybody. I'm so glad everybody was able to call in and take some time out of our busy nights. This is just going to be a laid-back show. We're just going to have some conversation here and just kind of get to know some of our local Springfieldians. I don't even know if that's a real word, but can everybody out there hear me okay?
Hearing you great.
Okay, very good, very good. So there's a few people here that I was really looking forward to specifically kind of getting to know that said they were going to call in. I don't know if they are in or they're still calling in, but I was looking forward to speaking to Jabril X McFarland. He's a gentleman that wanted to really see about getting involved with the Black Lives Matter movement here locally in Springfield and just trying to see who's out there. We also have Nanda Nunley, who I believe is in Washington, D.C. I think she was going to speak before Congress, if I'm not mistaken, and had a nice chat with our Senator Roy Blunt, I believe his name is. I'm new to the area, so just getting to know people and how things work. And we have Juanda Sutton. I think she might be coming in. I know Vicki Walden is here. Lisa Irmen is here. I had a very nice conversation with Beth Tross from Ozarks Action Coalition a little while ago. That's really happy about everything we're trying to do here at Springfield Common Ground. So we're going to hopefully get this going. So maybe the few people we have here, you could just introduce yourselves. So the way it works here, because this is kind of just a conference call. That's all it really is, but I am just hacking it in a way and turning it into a podcast. So I have the ability to see phone numbers and people that come in, but I can't really tell who's who. So if you want to say something, if you got something to say, you could just just speak up, and then I'll just moderate and tell you to go ahead and speak. So go ahead. Who's on the line with us tonight?
Hi, this is Vicki Walden.
Okay, Vicki Walden. So thank you. We'll start off with you. Welcome, Vicki. Glad to have you here. Who else? Who else is here with us?
Lisa Irmen.
That was Lisa Irmen, I believe?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you for calling. And you're both Springfieldians, is that correct?
I actually live in Billings.
Okay, very good. And I heard somebody else just chime in. Who else is here with us?
Assalamu alaikum. This is Jabril.
Hey, Jabril. Alaikum salam. Nice to have you here. Peace be with you, brother. We're going to start off with you tonight because I know you were very passionate. You had a lot to say as an African-American man living here in Springfield, so we're going to just definitely get on that. I believe Vicki's here. Vic, you there, Vic?
Yes, I am.
All right. Shout out to Arkansas, coming all the way in from Arkansas. So I'm glad to have you. Glad to have you here. Okay, so we have a few other people chiming in. One of the things I'm going to do, and we'll have more time for everybody to say hello and do all the shout-outs and all that, I thought, since the theme today is Black Lives, White Allies, it would be good to get a little bit of context here and just a little bit of background about what Black Lives Matter is all about, who they are. And so I have the About the Black Lives Matter network pulled up here, and I'm just going to read a little bit about what that is. I have a few other articles we're going to talk about a little bit, but then we're going to talk to Jabril for a little while, and then we're going to just open up the conversation, open up the lines for everybody else to kind of talk. So I'll try not to make this too long, this little kind of introductory thing I'm going to read, but this is straight from the Black Lives Matter network's page. And it says here that the Black Lives Matter is a chapter-based national organization working for the validity of black life. We are working to rebuild the black liberation movement. This is not a moment, but a movement. Hashtag Black Lives Matter was created in 2012 after Trayvon Martin's murderer, George Zimmerman, was acquitted for his crime, and dead 17-year-old Trayvon was posthumously placed on trial for his own murder. Rooted in the experiences of black people in this country who actively resist our dehumanization, hashtag Black Lives Matter is a call to action and a response to the virulent anti-black racism that permeates our society. Black Lives Matter is a unique contribution that goes beyond extrajudicial killings of black people by police and vigilantes. It goes beyond the narrow nationalism that can be prevalent within black communities, which merely call on black people to love black, live black, and blind black, keeping straight black men in the front of the movement while our sisters, queer, and trans disabled folk take up roles in the background or not at all. Black Lives Matter affirms the lives of black, queer, and trans folks, disabled folks, black undocumented folks, folks with records, women, and all black lives along the gender spectrum. It centers those that have been marginalized within black liberation movements. It's a tactic to rebuild the black liberation movement. So what does hashtag Black Lives Matter mean? when we say Black Lives Matter, we are broadening the conversation around state violence to include all of the ways in which black people are intentionally left powerless at the hands of the state. We are talking about the ways in which black lives are deprived of our basic human rights and dignity. Hashtag Black Lives Matter is working for a world where black lives are no longer systematically and intentionally targeted for demise. We affirm our contributions to society, our humanity, and our resilience in the face of deadly oppression. We have put our sweat, equity, and love for black people into creating a political project, taking the hashtag off of social media and into the streets. The call for Black Lives Matter is a rallying cry for all black lives and their allies to strive for liberation. So that's straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. There's a little bit more later on I hope to read from this, because this is basically a movement that was created by 3 women, Opal Patrice, Patrice Colors, Opal Tometi, and another person. So there's a lot I need to learn on this. I'm an African American and Latino. I do believe strongly in the ideals and principles of, Black Lives Matter. But there's a lot to learn. So basically, we have Jabril here. He's very knowledgeable on this subject and a lot of social issues. So I'm looking forward to hearing his insights. So Jabril, how are you doing tonight?
I'm pretty good, sir. I'm blessed. And, I don't know.
Well, I'm glad you're here, man. Too blessed to be stressed. So everybody, me and Jabril, we kind of had an interesting way of meeting. Maybe we could talk about that a little bit. So maybe you want to go over where did we actually meet a little bit? Do you have any recollections about that day?
Yes, sir. We met at the Trump rally. And I don't know what they want to call it, but I guess it was the people versus Trump. It was a lot of Trump supporters.
I'll just mess with you.
It was an anti-Trump rally.
There we go.
Trump rally. Yeah, but interesting thing. I was planning on coming out there and wanted to see the presence of Black Lives Matter, and saw a couple of T-shirts, and then I saw Joshua over there with a friend of mine, and I guess they had something going on at another spot, so we all needed to get there, and that kind of like made us sit there for a minute, coordinate, and I guess interact with each other in that brief moment. But in that brief moment, Joshua, I saw in you a comrade and an ally that I wanted to get closer with.
Well, definitely. That means a lot to hear that. I'm very, very honored that you were able to see that in me. I saw that in you likewise. And I thought, I really think that something very special happened at that moment. I think it was the start of many more moments like that. And it's just interesting. The main people that call in today at the beginning, Jabril, are the same people that were riding in your car. So Vic was in your car, in your truck. Lisa was in your truck. We all came together. So I'm going to bring a little bit of history of what happened. So I know Lisa Irmen, she's listening in on here too. A call was put out shortly before the people's protest for peacekeepers. And basically, it was asked to have peacekeepers on both sides, even on the Trump side, to come together prior to the rally to just make sure that there were people on the ground, on the street level, that would help to de-escalate any possible, skirmishes, or, make sure that nothing resorted to violence. That was the main thing. And so we had they had a meeting the night before, I believe. They posted it on Facebook, and a very well-known community activist named Andy Sun got in touch with me and asked me if I wanted to participate. So we had the peacekeepers there that was kind of doing somewhat like a crowd control type of thing. And then we had legal observers that were peacekeepers. We had medics that were there, that were trained to be there, keeping everybody hydrated and safe. And so many of them are listening in right now. So we had a very successful protest that day. But there was a group of people from the People's Protest that walked over to the Kearney side of things on Kearney Street, I believe it's called. You have to forgive me. I'm just learning the area because I'm new to the area, and that's where the pro-Trump rally was. And so a lot of our well-intentioned people from our side went to there with their signs, and the peacekeepers from the Trump side, radioed into us for some assistance to de-escalate. And so the other gentleman, I believe his name was Maurice, he was riding around in his car, and it was funny. He had his car with his rims and his tents, that said Black Power, blasting his music, just representing, he playing that song, F Donald Trump, people were kind of trying to figure this guy out, like, what's going on over here? But he volunteered to have us jump in his car to get to Kearney, because the fear was that we weren't going to get there in time before something jumped off. And that's when, Jabril, you showed up in your vehicle, and we were all strangers. I know Vic, Lisa, other people that I don't even remember their name. We all got together like we knew each other for years, and we were like, jump in. And it was like 3 or 4 carloads of us. And we went over to the other side. And, we didn't have no problem with the police. We even had a gentleman that was open carrying with us. He had his firearm with us, with him at all sides, right in front of the police. There was nothing, violent or anything that happened like that. But, we didn't back down. We went there in numbers, but just to make sure that there was, legal observers, medics on hand, and just to de-escalate and just to let everybody enjoy their right to peacefully protest and make their voices heard. So there was some, some unkind, racially insensitive things that were said at us and hurled at us. But, it all worked out. We were able to make sure everybody had a ride back to the other side, to our side where it was nice and safe. And we had a nice conversation. And, this is the type of thing that we want to keep going. So this is kind of like how we all met. So, hope I didn't rant too much, but yeah, we're gonna work together and we're gonna do a lot of things. So, Jabril,
for just a second.
Okay.
Jabril, were you the one that drove us back to where the protest was at, basically?
Jabril, you there? I think he might have gotten disconnected. I'll send him a message.
That's
when you hear that. Okay, you know what? I'm going to send him a message here. Sometimes that happens. Like I said, this is a live show. Sometimes, people get disconnected. They're calling in from a cell phone.
No worries.
But, okay, Jabril, is that you? You back?
Yes, sir, I'm back. I don't know what had happened, but I lost sound of you, and then everything just cut off.
Okay, good. So one thing we want to let everybody know, folks, most people are calling in with their cell phones, and this is basically a conference call that I'm converting into a podcast. So it's not NBC News, it's not NPR. It's kind of it's just kind of ghetto-fied, if that's even a word. But we're gonna make it work. We're gonna make it happen. But so if you get disconnected, just call back in. And we'll get you back. But Jabril, right when you got disconnected, we had some people, they want to know more about you and have some questions for you. So Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, Jabril, were you the one that drove us back in your vehicle to the sort of main place of the protest?
Yes, ma'am, that would be me.
I remember sitting in the back of that car, and you heard us talking about protesting and standing up for each other, and you told us what your father or grandfather used to tell you about Malcolm X.
Oh, yeah, because a lot of movements, since I've been, a student of history or whatnot, a lot of movements seem to have 2 dynamics to it. And when you look at the history of the civil rights movement and just life in general for black people at that time, as far as leadership was concerned, you basically had 2 contrasts. And Malcolm was considered more the extreme because under his teaching and his leadership, he believed in separation, whereas, Martin Luther King believed in integration and getting black people civil rights or whatnot. And so, one time I asked my grandfather, who were you more in favor of? And he said, I'm in favor of both. And he's like, I've never been the type of one to bicker over objectives or strategies to get to the objective. I'm sorry, that's what he says. Strategies or methodologies for achieving a particular objective or goal. And he was like, if I owed you $10, would it matter to you if I gave you 10 ones or 5 5s or a 5 and 5 ones? And I was like, of course not. As long as it adds up to $10, what you owe me. And that was pretty much how he made sense of that. When they're both achieving or trying to achieve the same objective, then we shouldn't really bicker over strategies.
Absolutely. I appreciated you that day, and that moment when you said that resonated with me, and I carry it with me today. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, those are some very famous sentiments that Malcolm X had said, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember I've heard different people express it in different ways. I've always been a student of history as well. And like I said, I don't try to pretend like I'm a scholar or know everything, but I like to follow Professor Griff a lot from Public Enemy, and he's a very socially conscious activist. And I remember I saw a seminar where he was saying, we're all trying to get to 7. I might, get there by 5 and 2, putting 5 and 2 together. You might do it by, 6 and 1, and you might be trying to get there by 3 and 4, whatever. My math is a little off, but the point is the whole objective is to get to 7.
Right.
And in the Bible even 7 is the number for perfection, not to get into numerology and whatnot. So right. I think that's very appropriate that you said that, because you had people from different backgrounds. You had, at the protest and even in the car, I'm from New York. I'm African American or Black American, whatever politically correct way you want to term it, but I'm also Latino. I'm Puerto Rican, and I'm about justice and equality. And so, we have this very serious issue of, police brutality going on in this country, disproportionate amount of black incarceration in this country and police brutality, and it affects us. But we also have the situation that's going on in Puerto Rico, so, there's a lot going on. And it's just not about one group or one strategy, because we're all interconnected. We're all affected, in this country. And so, exactly. We have, women that are being treated unfairly. We have disabled folks being treated unfairly. We had, a murder of a trans teen, brutally murdered by 4 other white teens, and they didn't label it a hate crime. So, all these issues affect all of us. We're all affected by all these things. So that's why I think it's really important that we come together. Now, there's some articles out there that are really good. One article, I don't know how much time we're going to have to get into it, but it talks about, it's from the New York Times. It was recently posted. If you could just Google it or look at it. It's why all lives matter is such a perilous phrase, and it kind of talks about that. And one of the things we kind of wanted to have a conversation about today is, the title of the show is Black Lives, White Allies. That came through at that protest. I mean, we saw that live and in action. Black people, white people, men and women coming together as allies, looking out for each other, loving each other, protecting each other. But there is some caution, because many times we all have well intentions, and we want to help, and we want to do things, and we want to contribute, but at the same time, with all these different causes, there's intersectionality, right? And, things could be misread, misperceived. Sometimes with a lot of movements, there could even be some inner conflict where maybe people will think, well, as a white ally, you're constantly telling me what I need as an African American male, or as a movement, or whatever, or what it is that we need to do. And when we know very well what we need and what we want, so sometimes it's just good to just really kind of lay the groundwork or the foundation so that everybody has a voice, but we're not being insensitive to one another, because that's what is being portrayed. They want to portray us as just this loose group of ragtag individuals that are not unified, and we're just Antifa, we're this and that. So I thought this would be a good place to start, to have some dialogue, to actually get to know each other, because we all see each other with the T-shirts and the flags and the slogans. So, on this topic, Jabril, do you have any thoughts on that, or anything you maybe wanted to express, maybe some concerns, some of the things you like about Black Lives Matter, some of the things you don't like about the movement, anything along those lines?
Well, let me say this. It's like, with this particular movement, Black Lives Matter, and I guess I'll go ahead and put it out there and say why I'm interested or whatnot. I've been what I would like to call socially conscious pretty much all my life. And that's just, and what I mean by that is just basically being in tune or being conscious of political agendas being pushed by black folks, as well as white folks trying to push an agenda over on black folks. But suffice it to say, I was attracted to Black Lives Matter. One of the things that attracted me was the white allies that I saw. And the reason I'm saying that is because we only number like over 40 million, close to 50 million people over here in this country. And we are a minority. We've been a minority for quite some time. And with that being said, just like the political system suggests itself that it's basically going to be ran by the majority. If this country were the majority of Democrats, then I'm quite sure Trump wouldn't have got in office. But that's what helps bring about balance of the system itself. And you kind of need those antagonistic forces, even when they're allies. That's why they always talking about, bipartisan, which basically means just working together, right?
Right.
Okay. So that's what I saw an opportunity for, was bipartisan, because I was pretty much raised and came under the leadership of Minister Louis Farrakhan in the Nation of Islam. But what I saw was, as an active member myself, trying to bring other people in, a lot of black people are just fed up with religion, period. They don't care what form it comes in. And so with that being said, I was like, well, they'll be able to attract a certain amount of people, but what about, the everyday brother like myself before I went to the Nation of Islam, that still has that's still drinking a little bit, or, don't have the moral standards, if you will. They as you are in the church, but they don't expect you to stay that same way and whatnot. And the church is a little bit more lenient, in my experience, a lot more lax than the Nation of Islam. So with that understanding, I just recognized that, religious groups weren't going to be the sole means by which, we come up with a political agenda that addresses a lot of our issues. And after the Million Man March, and everything, join there's any black organization about the liberation or equal rights or getting social justice for black people, then you needed to, start joining these organizations. Well, if we're going to be nonviolent over here in America, then that's basically saying we're going to participate in the political structure of the system. And as I understand the political structure of the system, basically so if I'm in a black liberation movement and I can align myself with white people who are sympathetic or even empathetic toward my cause, you know, that's the place I feel like I need to be at. Because just working from one side of the fence, you know, as I see it, they're doing their end. Now we need to get on the other end. You know, if you have to pick up a table, you really can't do it by yourself. You're going to be off balance some type of way. So if you put one person at the other end, you get a person at the other end, you both can lift the table and move it where it needs to be moved. And that's how I feel. I feel like religious organizations are on one end. You know, we need some other people to get over here on this other end and help lift this table.
Absolutely, I could definitely agree with much of what you're saying, and I like what you're talking about the churches. You know, there's a lot of good and a lot of social justice that can come from the church, no matter what denomination. But if you just limit yourself to that, there's a whole demographic of people that could be left out, you know, that are not, you know, maybe, you know, of the same belief as you. I mean, for instance, so one thing about Black lives, you know, Black people in general, we're not a monolith. You know, there's a whole spectrum. You know, we don't all think the same. We don't all act the same. We don't all dress the same. We don't all listen to the same music. So your background is coming through the Nation of Islam, which there was a time that I was kind of very interested in lured by that whole thing. I'm a big fan to this day of Malcolm X, and I believe in a lot of what he said. You know, but I also love Martin Luther King. And, you know, they had different approaches to, you know, trying to attack the same problem, you know, and you illustrated that very well. But even Malcolm X, towards the end of his life, you know, kind of evolved in his thinking. And one of the things that I appreciated about Martin Luther King, he was able to move masses of people. Yes, we are a minority, but he moved masses of people, white, black, didn't matter. And I think we need a little bit more of that today. And for me, just to let everybody know, I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness. And in my faith, in my tradition, we weren't supposed to get involved in any kind of politics because they used to teach us, well, Christians should be no part of this world, and the system's corrupt, so you shouldn't be involved with a corrupt system. So their solution was a messianic solution, you know, leave everything in God's hands, you know. So that approach doesn't work for me anymore because, you know, I can't wait for the Messiah to come and fix all the problems in this world. So now as I evolve from that and I'm more of a secular person, a secular humanist, so to speak, and I go to the Unitarian Church here in Springfield, you know, I'm all about inclusion and working with the different groups, you know, working with, you know, the LGBTQ community, working with, you know, whoever. Anybody that wants to push an agenda that's going to be beneficial. I'll even work with Republicans if they got something to the table that they want to add that's going to be beneficial. And so that's why we need to build understanding. You know, Black Lives Matter was really a hashtag and a movement that was founded by women. And it was interesting. I'll just paraphrase a little bit. If you go to their website on the Who We Are, they have a section here called Her Story. And actually, I have it here. And if it's okay, I'll just read that. It says, the creation of a movement. She says she created hashtag Black Lives Matter with Patrice Cullors and Opal Tometi, two of my sisters, as a call to action for black people after 17-year-old Trayvon Martin was posthumously placed on trial for his own murder and the killer, George Zimmerman, was not held accountable for the crime he committed. It was a response to anti-black racism that permeates our society and also, unfortunately, our movements. Black Lives Matter is an ideological and political intervention in a world where black lives are systematically and intentionally targeted for demise. It's an affirmation of black folks' contributions to this society, our humanity, and our resilience in the face of deadly oppression. We are humbled when cultural workers, artists, designers, and techies offer their labor and love to expand hashtag Black Lives Matter movement beyond a social media hashtag. And it goes on and on. But the point is, they wanted to highlight that it's just not about just black males. It's about black women. It's about the black queer community, about the trans community. It's not one-dimensional. A lot of times in these movements, in these black liberation movements, there's a whole different segments of people that, kind of are left to the background and underrepresented. So they want to encompass all that. One thing that's important, we need our white allies. There's a person I hope I could get to kind of speak up a little bit here, Vicki Walden. I mean, I see her posts, I see her videos, I see her standing up to the police, I see her, out there putting skin in the game, and I'm brave too, and I'll do those things, but there is a certain sense of privilege that comes being white, where there's certain situations where you could kind of speak up and be a voice that's going to be listened to more or taken seriously, or maybe not. A lot of times our white allies is going to be the best thing that we have, to not only expose, the brutality or the injustices that are going on, but also to give us a lot of the legal help we need, a lot of the protection that we need, So I am very much appreciative of that. Vicki, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Very glad you're here with me. I had a chance to interview you on one of my first streaming broadcasts, and you gave a heartfelt expression about how you felt about this movement, and it was at the DACA protest, and it wasn't a Black Lives Matter thing, but you were there still representing for this movement, because it's all related. And you explained to me what made you so passionate about that. So I was just hoping maybe you could kind of talk about that, briefly. Why do you feel the need to constantly get the word out, to constantly be posting, to constantly be out there, doing what you do?
Sure, I'd be happy to. When Mike Brown was murdered by Darren Wilson, I saw it on the news, and I saw the typical standard showing mug shots, trying to find things that were wrong, that Mike Brown had done wrong, trying to justify the murder. And I couldn't find what I needed on on mainstream media, so I went to Twitter. And I started watching live streams, and I saw, I used to be a paramedic. As a paramedic, I was highly offended that Michael Brown's body was left laying in the street for 4.5 hours. As a mother, watching his mother from the sideline, not even being allowed to go to him. They didn't allow nurses who were there wanting to assess him and possibly, save him. We didn't know at that point if he could have been saved. They wouldn't allow that to happen. So I was highly offended on that level. My youngest daughter is the same age as Mike Brown, and their trajectory was so similar, getting ready to go to college, young kids looking forward to their whole life, and I saw his life lost, and I realized my white child would never have been in the position Mike Brown was in. She wouldn't have been killed in the first place. She would have never been allowed to lay in the street like that. I, as her mother, would never have been treated as Mike Brown's mother was treated.
But wait a second now. They say, he was stealing cigarettos, he was shoplifting, he was this and he was that. What do you have to say about that? I mean, we constantly, like you said, they were constantly trying to point out all the negatives of what he did, and it just baffles me. So that means that that human being deserved to be on a cold street for hours and hours and hours with not even a blanket over him, without, like you had mentioned, his mom being able to even go to her son, Well,
that was something that struck me, is he wasn't allowed, it didn't matter what he did or did not do. I personally don't believe all of the things that they say he did do. I think that well, that's beside the point, because it doesn't matter what he did. Should have been afforded due process. My child would have been afforded due process. They take in white criminals all the time. And my child, had she been a criminal, she would have been taken in alive and afforded due process. So I was offended on that level also. And I realized I can't stay in my white apathetic bubble anymore and send off a check to charity and call it good. That's not enough. The Black Lives Matter did become a rallying cry for me as I saw police bring attack dogs, which we know the historical significance of that. They brought attack dogs to a candlelight vigil for Mike Brown. A community of black people, they brought attack dogs. That would never happen in my neighborhood, ever, under any conditions at all. So to me, it became personal at that time that Mike Brown could very well have been my child, but since my children are white, it could never have been my child.
Very true words you're speaking there. So, it really served as a rallying cry. I mean, we had things happen all over the country. I come from New York, so we've been dealing with this issue of police brutality for many years. Many of you may have remember, Amadou Diallo shot 42 times, for following commands, when, he was approached by police. We had Sean Bell a few years later, the night before his wedding in Queens, New York, outside of a, gentleman's club, shot, 40 or 50 ridiculous amount of time, unarmed. We have, Abner Nwima in New York, who was beaten viciously by police and sexually sodomized with a plunger while in police custody. That was one of the few times that we got some justice. Not all of the police were acquitted. I believe one of the officers got life in jail for that. But, of course we have Eric Gardner that was choked to death live on film, and it's basically a snuff film. And, even with recorded instances like that, it's just, we don't seem to get any kind of justice or accountability whatsoever. But, I think Eric Gardner's situation, and then something that's more close to home here in Missouri, what happened in Ferguson, I think that whole Mike Brown incident really was a game changer. Don't you think?
Oh, yeah. For sure.
I agree also. That's when Black Lives Matter turned into a worldwide movement, I believe. And the Ferguson frontline people, I have followed them for over 3 years. They are absolutely brilliant. Their strategies, they know what they're doing, and it's critical for us white people to follow the lead of, stand beside, and support black people. But we cannot, under any conditions, decide we know better than the marginalized person. We just cannot. And that's the biggest concern that I see amongst white people is us. We're really good at thinking we know everything and how to fix everything. And it's time, white people need to sit back and listen and take direction from those who are marginalized. And in the Black Lives Matter case, that's black people.
Joshua,
Right.
if I could step in for a second, this is Lisa.
Okay.
I actually have been listening, and I wrote down a sentence that said, how can I be a better white ally? And then as I'm listening, I'm like, wait, no, scratch out white. How can I be a better ally? And then I'm like, well, hell to that. No, I am white. And I need to address those feelings in myself. How can I be a better white ally? Do you understand what I'm saying? And if you do, give me some guidance.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And you know what? One of the things that I want to say is I've been very much educated on this subject and on this issue because I am not white, and I can't say to myself in my inside voice, I am white, and know what that feels like and know what I do. What I do observe, just to kind of, add to what you're saying, I see this hyper sensitivity on the part of white people, not to offend, but also just this sincere desire to use their resources, use their privilege to help. And that is very much appreciated, and that's very much welcome. But there's just a lot that goes into that. And I saw a sermon earlier today by a reverend who spoke on this very issue about white privilege and about how to be a good white ally. And somebody in the audience, if you watch the video, said, well, why should it matter? Why do we even have to have the word white in there? And she just said, I wish it didn't matter, but it actually does. And so I can't really get to the details of it. What I would recommend everybody, there's a video out there on YouTube on Black Lives Matter, How to Be a Good White Ally, and it's a sermon by a reverend named Jennifer Ryu. Her name is Jennifer Ryu, R-Y-U. And she underlines 4 key things that you could do to be a good white ally. I could hit some of those bullet points, but it really doesn't hold as much weight as just listening to the actual sermon. It's brief. It's only about 20-something minutes. Vicki had sent me a message. She underlined 4 key things, but it was, the first one was understanding your white identity, understanding what racism is, educate yourself, and mobilizing your people. Now, number 4, mobilizing your people. I think Springfield has been doing a stellar job because I see a sea of white people who are just screaming Black Lives Matter, and they're out there in the front lines, and they're putting skin in the game, and they have empowered me and motivated me to speak up and do what I'm doing now. Another good resource to look for is called Guidelines for Being Strong White Allies. It's an article by a famous activist. It was adapted from Uprooting Racism, How White People Can Work for Social Justice. And it's by a gentleman by the name of Paul Kivel. So that's Paul Kivel. The last name is spelled Kivel. And if you just kind of research his write-up, and it goes over basic tactics and what people of color want from white allies. One of the things that it kind of is cringeworthy or just kind of makes black people uncomfortable, I'll just say this, we get asked a lot of time by white people, well, how do black people feel about this? And, what's the right thing to say in this situation or that situation? And to just put yourself in our position, I mean, how many times in a day, in a week, in a lifetime are you as a white person asked to speak and explain how everybody feels in your whole race? One person. Speak for your whole race. And that was something that was addressed in that video, and how really that rarely, if ever, is going to happen. But I'm not going to speak for everybody. I'm not going to speak for Jabril. I'm going to speak for myself and how I feel and, what I see. But there, in that article that Paul Kivel wrote, there's some things here that says what people of color want from white allies. And there's a few things here that's mentioned, and it's just different phrases. 1, respect us. Find out about us. Don't take over. Provide information, resources. Take risk. Don't take it personally. Understanding. Teach your children about racism. Speak up. Your body is on the line. Listen to us. Don't make assumptions. Stand by my side. Don't assume you know what's best for me. Money. Make mistakes. Honesty. This is a big one. Talk to other white people. interrupt jokes and comments. Don't ask me to speak for my people. Persevere daily. So I encourage anybody who's listening, this was an insightful thing. It was insightful for me to learn and read this, and I'm African American. I needed to know this stuff too. So I hope I haven't ranted too long. I hope that answers your question.
Not at all. I agree. I have heard white privilege for ever, and I never really got the grasp of it until I read a heartbreaking article a few weeks ago, and I finally get it. And people, perhaps, I'm going to be honest, perhaps if you're white, you think white privilege means you're bad, you're racist. I don't think that's what it means. I think it means you are privileged because you're white. And a lot of white people do not get that, and I get that now completely.
Here's how this is Vicki again. Here's how I try to look at that. My white privilege is in my skin. If a cop is pointing a gun at two people and one of those people's black and the other person is me, I'm probably not going to be the person who gets shot because he was scared.
Exactly. I agree with you, Vicki. I agree.
You know, and also another thing to think about with white privilege, when people hear that word privilege, that means I have it good, or that means that I asked for this privilege. You know, being born with white privilege is not something that you ask for, that you earn. You know, it's just something that you have just because racism is not a natural thing. It's not a biological thing. It's a social construct that has been in place for hundreds of years before any of us have been here, and that are part of the DNA and the makeup of our institutions, our teaching institutions, our medical institutions, our political institutions. So there's a lot of history and a lot of things that's built into this system that had nothing to do with us for the most part, unless we continue to perpetuate these type of things. And so, you know, that privilege comes in where, you know, if you know, think about how many times during the day, or let me rephrase this, you know, I was hearing somebody speak on this issue on a diversity-type conference lecture that I was thinking of, and the person, he was a white person, he was a minister, and he was saying that he was talking to a fellow minister, and he was saying how every day of his life, almost every second, he's always constantly having to think about race, his race, and how he's perceived by the world around him. You know, whether it's walking his dog, you know, walking in a certain neighborhood at a certain time, you know, automatically being perceived as a threat or having to be worried about perceived as a threat. Whereas, you know, he was saying, well, you know, I never think about race. This is a white man talking. I never think about race. It's something, I don't see race. I don't like to think about race. I don't even want to talk about race. Well, that's what the white privilege is. If you don't have to ever think about it or even have to get involved, that's the privilege that you have. I, as an African American, as a Latino, do not have that luxury. I always have to be cognizant of how I look, how I dress, how people are perceiving. I always have to be aware of, you know. Go ahead.
So,
go ahead.
So
Jabril.
this is Lisa, and there are a couple of things that I would like to reiterate that I heard several people say, and that I've heard many people even before this conversation. You know, they'll say, I don't understand white privilege because I've had struggle in my life and nobody handed me anything. And what I really try to let my friends and my family understand about white privilege is it doesn't mean you haven't struggled in your life. That's not what it means at all. But there are some things in life you'll not experience and you'll never have to think about. And I heard several of you touch on that. But there's one thing that I would like to add as far as being a good white ally. I think listening, number one for me, and then doing your homework. And in today's day and age with the Internet, you have endless resources at your fingertips. You know, with social media, you see people sharing their experiences, their perceptions, blog posts, tweets, news articles. I'm a librarian, so I'm all about resources. But there are endless resources out there if you stay curious and really seek out the information. You're going to find so many people telling you what they've experienced, and I think that's always the best way to understand what people are going through.
Thank you, Lisa. Very, very important. Very good, and I agree. Jabril, I know you've been trying to, put some input on here, so go ahead. You got the floor, Jabril.
All right. Well, actually, 2 points I want to chime in on. Thank both of you ladies for sharing the information that you shared. But Joshua, you said in the little list that you ran down as far as what white people can do as allies, one of the things that you pointed out was don't try to take over. And I think that's very key. I think that's very a valid key point, as well as, in my opinion, a blatant example. I mean, just a bold example of what we mean by white privilege. As a black man, I don't care how educated I am or whatnot, I don't think there is one Jewish organization out there that's kind of tied in with the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, that would be okay with a black man running their organization, an organization that's supposed to be about the liberation of that particular people. And that's how I look at it sometimes when white people outjoin black people, or I see white people in executive positions, if you will. Now, I don't know, my life experience is just the opportunity that a nonprofit organization works, the administration behind it, the financial benefits of it, so forth and so on. It's a couple of books out there that's pointed out in history that white philanthropists are not involved with these organizations and they take over, and then after a while the agenda changes and the strategies change with regards to their goals and objectives, mainly with the strategies that are being employed. I don't know if anybody's been keeping up with the little movement in St. Louis, but there's a website called The Real St. Louis News. It's basically some locals out there that's part of the movement, and they basically survive off of donations. But anyway, they're always there at all the protests. And I hear a lot of people say that, that raising your fists up and black power this and black power that. And I asked the guy because he has, my friend Marcus has black power on the back of his vehicle with, the fist up in the air. And I always see.
Hey, I don't mean to cut you. I just got to make it known that Marcus, that guy with the black power, that's the guy that went. And there were people that approached me. Oh, we're nervous. Who is this guy? And that was the main person before you came, Jabril, that picked up all the protesters and were giving them rides back. I just wanted to just give a quick shout out about that. I apologize for interrupting, but go ahead.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Give a quick shout out.
What I was trying to get to, or what I'm leading up to, is even with him catching flack behind, the fist raised up in the air and the saying of black power, me and him both agreed that that's not black power. Black power is our economics. And if we've been watching closely to the protests in St. Louis, these malls are losing money. And they're losing money in the millions of dollars as a direct result of protesters going out there. Now, what's the strategy with going after corporate America, if you will? Because it's corporate America pretty much that's part of the lobbying game. And if you know anything about the lobbying game, then you know that they have a big influence on legislation.
Absolutely.
But that's one of the things. I'm sorry.
I think somebody was just trying to say something to give if you just pause just for a quick moment, Jabril. I think somebody had something to say real quick. I don't know if it was a shout out or something, and then we can continue. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's Lisa. I'm sorry, Joshua, when you said that about his car. I remember Yvonne saying when you guys were going to help us get down there, and there were 3 of you black gentlemen, and she said, we can't let you 3 go down there without a white person getting out of the car. And I said, well, then I'll go. And then that is when white privilege really started to dawn on me. It's like, well, you guys can't go do that, even though you're trying to help and make peace. You needed a white person to step out of that car. That is just, it was eye-opening to me.
Yeah, the other lady that was there, she was a medic, I believe. I wish I could have got information. She was definitely afraid of letting us go there without any white people. And I understood where she was coming from. And she's from Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. She works on a military base. So she's not a coward by any means, but she knew very well that we needed that white ally. We needed you white allies to be able to do what we did. And everything worked out really smoothly. And that's exactly what white privilege is. You know, I'm glad you mentioned that.
I hear you.
Now, folks, this podcast was scheduled to be an hour. We've reached the hour mark. I'm just going to go a little bit louder. I just want everybody to just kind of give their final thoughts and just kind of talk. Just let us know who you are, how you feel. I had a conversation with somebody that called earlier. I hope she's listening in. She said she was going to call back. She called into the conference an hour earlier. I don't know if she did it by mistake. Her name was Beth Cross from Ozarks Act Coalition. She's been very active in a lot of community initiatives. She's been an activist since the 70s, she's told me. I don't know if you're there. Are you out there, Beth?
Yeah, I'm on there with you.
Okay. Hey, I'm so glad. I'm going to start with you, and then I just want to go down the line. I want Beth. I want Vic. I want everybody just to kind of just let us know who you are. And we need to just kind of talk about what we're going to do in Springfield. Where do we go from here? How are we going to get together? How are we going to rally? How are we going to organize? There's a Black Lives Matter webpage, a Facebook group, Black Lives Matter of Springfield, Missouri, that recently popped up. And there's people that are wanting to get into leadership. I forgot the name of the admin of that page. I'll try to look it up. You know, I'm willing to support you if you're listening. I want to rally behind you. Let's figure out how we're going to get this going. Let's figure out how we're going to support our LGBTQ community. Let's just see how we're going to be able to work together and make sure that we just maintain our identity, you know, and, you know, the purity of what we're doing. But we had a really good conversation, Beth. Can you just let us know who you are, what you've been involved with briefly in your life, and how do you feel about everything that's going on now and what we're trying to do?
Well, hey, Josh, I'm glad to listen to you, and I'm glad I got to talk to you before it started. I was just calling in early to check and see if all the numbers work. That's all, but we had a great conversation. You guys in Springfield, I live up Phelps County, and we're trying to organize people all over the Ozark area. So we're active with groups in all the surrounding counties here. And it's been really exciting. But you know what? Thank you to your guest speaker. Great discussion. Thank you for all the contributors tonight. A great way to kick off your podcast. You guys nailed it. It's common ground, and we all have something in common. I'm a retired social worker, and yeah, I've done a lot of activism through the years, whether it was protesting Vietnam, whether it was women's rights, environmental rights, queer rights, and activism. I did that here and in Montana. Social policy, union rights, civil rights, because they're all our rights. We all have a common ground. We have something to share with each other. And your speakers talked about listening so that you can understand more. And I'm listening. I'm still listening. I'm old. I'm retired. I'm disabled. But I'm always listening. And I am really, really excited about what you guys do down there. And you're talking about the charge and the energy you get when you're out working with each other on the street. And you're taking it to the streets. And you're taking it to a new level. And it's awesome. And it's positive. And it's empowering. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Vic, you're out there, Vic?
Thank you for calling in, and thank you for all of that.
Yes. Vic, you still with us?
I sure am.
Okay, Vic, she was a peacemaker and a medic. She was there. She was in the car with us, Jabril. Anything you want to say as we wrap things up, Vic?
The only thing that I would say, and this is something that I have come in contact with very recently the last few days, is white people not acknowledging that not acknowledging their privilege, trying to come at them as a educator is the only way that you're going to help get people to change, or that we as white people are going to help them to change. The most important thing, if anybody is listening to this that is not on this call and they are still concerned or wondering about their white privilege, it is not your time to talk. It is your time to listen to people who are oppressed. And it's the only thing that I would have to say. That's the biggest issue that I come across.
Thank you. Appreciate your voice. I know it's about listening, but we need to hear you too. So we're glad you're there. I appreciate it so much. You inspired me so much that day, taking care of everybody afterwards, making sure everybody was hydrated and safe. So thank you for your work that you're doing, and hope to keep it up. Lisa Irmen, that's somebody I definitely want to just talk to very quickly before we leave. Very important. I believe she is one of the organizers for the Peacekeepers. Lisa, are you there?
I'm here.
Lisa, can you just let us know and educate me a little bit? Because I know I came in at the tail end, like the night before, to be a peacekeeper, but I know and I was doing parking duty before the protest. But let us know. There's going to be people that are going to be listening to this from Springfield Indivisible and from all the different Facebook groups, Southwest Mo, and all this kind of stuff. What is it that the Peacekeepers? What are the Peacekeepers? Who are they, and what is the goal of the Peacekeepers as we go forward, not only with Black Lives Matter, but all the protests? Can you just kind of, because I know that you're working with the Springfield Police Department, so can you just let us know a little bit about that?
I can. As for goals, that's the biggest thing. I mean, I was thrown into peacekeeping on Sunday in the protest, and I didn't volunteer. I was asked. The protest happened on Tuesday. So I was going with the best of my knowledge, and I so appreciate that you were part of it. There's a lot that we can learn. Our objective, is to basically keep the peace and make everything okay. We were hit with a lot of negativity afterwards that threw me into a spiral, as you know, because we talked on the phone.
Yeah, welcome to our world.
Yeah, absolutely. It taught me so much about that. We need to not fight with each other. We need to work with each other. Peacekeepers, definitely. There is a program that's getting put together so we have more training. But we need to work with each other. I hope I answered your question there.
Yeah, and I just want to add, with the negativity and the stuff that people were posting, and you were discouraged and even closed the page after a while, and I'm glad you reopened it. I want everybody to know that very few people got together with this idea of peacekeeping, from what I understand, and there was quite a few of us, and we worked in sync, and we had synergy, and nobody knew each other, okay? Uh-huh. I didn't know Jabril. I didn't know Vic. I didn't know Lisa. We literally, it was from one day to the next, and it was people putting themselves on the line to help keep things organized and keep people off the side, off the street, and everybody cooperated. The protesters cooperated with us like if we were police or something, following all our directions, And it was just for something that was just thrown together so quickly, and then to have the resources of the police. They gave us permits. They gave us a lot of things for just a last-minute group of organization that came out of nowhere, and we worked so well together. So, cut us a little slack, for people that, just tried to come together last minute to do something positive. And going forward, it is going to be more structured. It is going to be more organized. There is going to be more training. I saw that there was a lot of, this was, that we weren't trained properly or whatever. But you know what? There were people there that were medics. There were people there that were experienced, and they just brought their A game, and they brought their experience to the table. And I know that we're going to be looking for more volunteers, because if anything, Black Lives Matter or any type of movement where you're protesting or speaking to the power, Lisa, you're always going to have people, especially if you're trying to help black people, you're always going to have people that are going to be negative and try to paint you in a bad light. That just comes with the territory. So I'm glad you're sticking to it and you're hanging in there. And we're going to continue to, be peacekeepers because they want to paint Black Lives Matter as this Antifa, negative, terrorist organization that has violence, that's about violence. And with any group, with any, rally, you're always going to have idiots. That can't be helped. That's why we have the peacekeepers. That's why we're there to try to, live up to the ideals that these three wonderful ladies started when they started hashtag Black Lives Matter. So thank you. Okay, so who else? Did I miss anybody that was on here that wanted to speak? I know we got Vic, we got Vicki, we got Lisa, we got Beth. Is there anybody else out there that just wants to say hi, give a shout out, or talk about
Hey, this is Debbie.
Hey Debbie, how are you? Springfield, my Springfield Common Ground comrade. How you doing so far, Debbie?
Good. I just been listening to everyone's thoughts, and I just wanted to say hi and maybe pose this question for other people to think about afterwards. But what can we do in Springfield? And what
raise awareness. Always raise awareness. That's one of the key elements. With any type of movement, whether it be civic, whether it be political, whether it be religious. I think it was best said that he who supplies reason directs the passion of the people. And basically, we're all educated on here. We know what that means. If you can be the one to get out there and define something and put a label on it quick, because in the psyche of human beings, period, if we feel ashamed about what we're doing, there's something in us that checks our nature and, guides us to do the right thing. So that's always been my philosophy. If you can get a person to feel ashamed of something, you can get them to change. And I strongly believe that in any movement where there's a rise, where there's a taking away power and giving the power to somebody else, or trying to equalize the power, it all starts with awareness, education. So it's just like the washing machine. Social justice is something that we're trying to air out, get out the fabric of America or whatnot. And it's going to take a lot of agitation. That wash cycle is going to have to be vicious. And that's how I look at it. This awareness, the education part of it, it has to be relentless and vicious.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, so go ahead. Somebody else had something to say? Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Vicki Walden, and something that some of us are working on is, and we're not sure, we haven't talked to the Black Lives Matter group yet to see if they'd like to give us direction. We have a new group called the Radical Activists in Demand in Springfield. We're going to start having, right now it's starting out as Sunday Solidarity time. We take our direction from the St. Louis protesters, who we feel are the most experienced protesters. They're in Missouri. We're in Missouri. We feel as if they're our family as well. One thing Bruce Franks Jr. asks is that we magnify the message. Very much like Jabril is saying, we need to raise awareness with agitation. So we plan to be out every Sunday to show solidarity with St. Louis, who they are protesting every single day, and they plan to for as long as it takes. They protested 400 days in Ferguson. I have no doubt if they need to be out there that long again, they will. So we'll be posting about that. And to keep in mind, this is justice for Anthony Lamar Smith. That is who St. Louis is protesting about, the terrible verdict that happened. And they're just asking that black people stop being killed. That's not such a big demand. It for some reason we're having trouble getting that message across. So that's our plans.
And I'm glad you mentioned your group. I'm just going to put that out there as we wrap it up. Please, if anybody's listening to this, join the Springfield Common Ground Facebook group. Join Springfield Indivisible. Join all these groups, and we could continue to listen as we continue to figure out how we're going to be more cohesive and more effective in our messaging and everything we're trying to do. You'll get more answers there. We'll get more direction, how we could magnify that message in St. Louis, and we'll keep this moving going. Jabril, how can people get in touch with you and follow you and find out and just kind of get the pulse of the black community here in Springfield? I'm a newcomer to here, so I need this information too, but, so how can people, what can we do to kind of work together and really just build that bond and cohesiveness and that connective tissue that needs to happen with all the separate groups? What can you tell us? What can we do here?
I believe that the best, I'm not going to say the best strategy, but one of the good strategies is building up your contact list, and getting involved, being proactive. You guys are going to see a lot more of me. I'm trying to get some things or put my family in a position where I can help out more with this movement like this. But what I want to say to the white listeners and the whites that are on the phone with us, what's very, very important about your message to your people, and I'm saying your people only in the sense of color, because I feel like I'm your people too. I'm a human being, so damn it, we're people. But anyway,
yeah, very good.
I believe you guys, your task is the most difficult, because while you're raising awareness, you have to think about it. Black people are raising awareness from a victim's perspective or standpoint, whereas you're not the victim, but you're also not the perpetrator. So how is your message going to be packaged? And I strongly believe that your strategy or your job is to make your people start realizing what accountability is, start realizing what denial is, because those two things right there seems to be the defense mechanism against everything that we protest about, everything that we cry out about. They don't want to take
pulling the race card.
They don't want to take accountability.
Yeah.
And you know what? What the hell is a race card? Is that supposed to be like a trump card or something?
I think so.
Because I've never been able to play the race card, and it's brought me the solution or the benefit that I was looking for. A trump card supposed to mean you win, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And ain't that what the race card is supposed to be, a trump card? I've never been able to win any debate or anything with that card. I don't even know what that card is.
I'm still waiting for my reward points for my race card.
Are you
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
The definition of a race card?
I'm sorry.
Are we asking for what?
What was that?
Can you just repeat that? We didn't hear you.
Yeah. Are you asking for the definition of a race card, or are you being sarcastic?
Well, I would say I'm kind of being a little sarcastic, because as a black man, every time I bring up social issues or things that are just blatantly racist, or even just talk about the history of certain things, I'm being accused of the race card. So yes, I'm being sarcastic because I've never benefited at all from any race card. So that's what I'm saying. But go ahead, Jabril.
I was once made a statement that, and I was being serious. I mean, some situations or some places, this is my actual program. But I was explaining to somebody that before I waste my gas, and this has been my experience in Springfield, before I waste my gas and going up to a place and filling out the application and then wasting more gas and time coming back for an interview, I just asked them up front, hey, do you guys hire black? Now, typically you would ask yourself, well, you know, everybody's application pretty much says that they're, you know, employer friendly, or they equal opportunity employer. There we go. I couldn't get that out. But Josh, and you can attest to this, man, I can have the skills, I can have all of that. I can be well qualified, but it's two qualifications that I don't fit. My skin tone, the color of my skin, and the fact that I'm a felon. Now, a lot of people don't understand institutional racism. But when you go into an employer, you know, you're trying to feed your family, you go into an employer, and you see that you qualify for the job but didn't get the job. A lot of people would say we're playing the race card to blame race, or to say race was an issue. Well, what other issue could there be other than the fact that I'm black? So when we say playing the race card, to me, that's like a rebuttal, really a pseudo rebuttal, and it's just a defense mechanism to whoever, you know, says that you're playing the race card. It's so that they can diffuse your point because you have a valid point. So I've never really liked the language of race card, and I really wish black people stop running from that or giving up their argument because someone says, oh, you're playing the race card.
Yeah, it's like a new insult. It's really weird.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like you telling me I don't see what's right in front of my eyes. Like with Eric Garner. Come on, man. That was right in front of our eyes.
Yep, absolutely. I know we've been going a little longer, but I'm just, you know, and I apologize that, you know, if we're taking too long, you know, to wrap it up. But I just want to say, again, how we're not a monolith. Like, I'm no angel. I'm not saying I've never done anything wrong, but I'm not a felon. I don't have a record. You know, I'm the only black employee at my company in Springfield. I'm not going to mention the name of the company, but I'm the only black, one of the only black. I think I saw one other black person working in the office. In the field, I'm an engineer. I'm the only black employee. And I constantly have to deal with making white people feel comfortable around me and not threatened, and just disarm them. And when they hear me speak and when they hear me talk, and they hear me joke around, you can just see the short circuit in their brain. And sometimes people say things, you know, and I've experienced this all my life. Well, wow, you're pretty well spoken. Oh, you know, you're pretty cool. Oh, wow, you're into comic books. Oh, you know, you like to go. You like going on nature walks and hike. And you're from New York. I've people in Springfield. I mean, I thought everybody from New York was just angry, mean, and hateful. You know, you're not that angry. You know what I'm saying? We deal with that constantly. You know, and so that's what I deal with. And just the act of talking about that, or how much mental energy I have to spend a day dealing with that. You know, if I even dare, like, kind of mention it or highlight it, a lot of times I get that, oh, you're playing the race card. You know, so, you know, that's just something I just wanted to throw in there. You know, I don't know if that makes any sense. I don't know if anybody else can relate.
It does.
The race card is a white construct to shut black people down. It's just the same as all lives matter. Is to shut down Black Lives Matter. Blue Lives Matter is to shut down Black Lives Matter. It's white people. I don't know why we do it, but we are experts at doing that, shutting down people who are different than us. So I apologize. You all have to put up with that all the time, and I know you do all the time.
Yeah.
I've
seen white people, and this is what I'm talking about. It's going to be hard going after the ones who are either in denial and don't want to. And here's what I see with not wanting to acknowledge things, because when you acknowledge something, it kind of makes you liable, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I see. Nobody wants to be held accountable because nobody wants to be held liable. Because over here in this country, when you're liable for something, there's monetary gain right there for someone else.
Right.
So you know what, folks? I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, this is something we could talk about all night. I hope I did an okay job for our initial launch.
You did great, brother.
Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Very good. We're going to be doing other things. We're exploding with ideas at Springfield Common Ground. There's so much. Please be patient with us. I know we've been promising articles and stuff, but like the news cycles are just so, static and ever changing and dynamic and, not static, it's dynamic. So, I mean, we started off trying to write about DACA, but then, Trump started, calling Kim Jong-il Rocket Man, and then we had the hurricanes happen, and then we had Puerto Rico, and then we had, the shooting that happened, the mass shooting that happened in Las Vegas. Our hearts and prayers and thoughts, go out to the victim. So much has been happening. It's been hard to keep up and write, but we have several people that are going to contribute to the Common Ground. Eventually, we want to put out something in print, but stay tuned to the Springfield Common Ground Facebook page. Please spread the word about the Springfield Black Lives Matter, Springfield, Missouri chapter,
yes.
Springfield Indivisible. Vicki, what was the name of your group again?
We're brand new, and it's Radical Activists in Demand. The acronym is RAID, R-A-I-D. Yeah.
All right. This is on Facebook?
Yeah, it's on Facebook. I'll post it. I'll post the Springfield Common Ground. I think this is an awesome platform. Thank you so much for doing this.
Okay, and this recording is going to be posted on my page, and I'm going to post it in Common Ground and then share this. So everybody give yourselves a great hand. We're all family. We're all one, and we're going to continue. Very good. So I'm going to just warn everybody, I'm going to close it out with Common and John Legend, Glory, the wonderful song, the appropriate song. We're going to play that. I just have to warn you guys, I'm using a very crude system here with this conference call, so it's going to come through kind of loud on your phones. So if you want to hang up, if it's too loud, that's fine. But I'm just going to let the song play, and then this is going to be posted up probably tomorrow. If not tomorrow, definitely by Saturday, this recording, and you'll be able to hear it. So thank you, guys, and stay tuned for our future podcast. All right.
Yeah.
One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours, it will be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure, we will be sure. Oh, glory, glory, glory. Oh, glory, glory.
Hands to the heavens, no man, no weapon formed against, yes, glory is destined. Everyday women and men become legends. Sins that go against our skin become blessings. The movement is a rhythm to us. Freedom is like religion to us. Justice is juxtapositioning us. Justice for all just ain't specific enough. One son died, his spirit is revisiting us. True and living in us. Resistance is us. That's why Rosa sat on the bus. That's why we walk through Ferguson with our hands up. When it goes down, we woman and man up. They say stay down, and we stand up. Shots be on the ground, the camera panned up. King pointed to the mountaintop, and we ran up.
One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours, it will be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure, we will be sure. Oh, glory, glory, oh, glory, glory. Now the war is not over.
woman and child. Even Jesus got his crown in front of a crowd. They march with the torch, we gon' run with it now. Never look back, we done gone hundreds of miles. From dark roads, heroes, to become a hero. Facing the League of Justice, his power was the people. Enemy is lethal, a king became regal. Saw the face of Jim Crow under a bald ego. The biggest weapon is to stay peaceful. We sing, our music is the cuts that we bleed through. Somewhere in the dream we had an epiphany. Now we right the wrongs in history. No one can win a war individually. It takes the wisdom of the elders and young people's energy. Welcome to the story we call victory. The coming of the Lord, my eyes have seen the glory.
One day, when the glory comes,